Oh. All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thanks for sticking around for all of that. This is the Reverie Roundtable, which we do Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, or whenever we stop arguing about other random shit. Whenever we're done with the pre-stream, we get started here. Okay. I have a fantastic group of individuals with me. Very excited to have them. So now start introducing them. But if you watch this on YouTube later on, like, comment, subscribe, just put that out there, right? So, shout out to YouTube audience. So Lactoid, thank you for coming through. Lactoid, one of our, I don't want, okay, Lactoid gets upset with me now, right? Lactoid gets upset with me. And I don't want to say the obvious joke. I don't want to do it. Okay? All right?
Do it. Do it.
This meme will die at some point. It has to. We're gonna get bored of it. At some point, it needs to. Please, God.
Oh, wait. You mean when you renounce your Canadian citizenship?
Yeah,
Right
Yeah, the fact that you're
Not going
begging
to.
for it to die says a lot.
when you're become a naturalized citizen of America, then yeah, sure, it'll die then. Lactoid, buddy, friend, thanks for coming through.
Thanks, Prime. Thank you for having me as always. Looking forward to talking to everybody. My name is Lactoid. You can find me on Anti-Communism United on Discord and Twitch. Hopefully my new camera makes me look all spick and span. I want to get 10 more followers because I've heard somewhere that if you get 50, then you're doing really good. So hopefully I convince some people in this very heated debate to come over and check me out.
What's your what name of your channel? Lactoid?
Oh yeah, it's just twitch.tv/Anti-Communism United.
Oh my God. Why was it so long? Oh my God.
I'm thinking about abbreviating it to ACU.
Yeah. Okay. So I hit his. Okay. Yeah, I managed to spell that right. Amazing. So audience members, guys, follow Anti-Communism United. Like, follow him. Get him in the 50 so he can have the option to be an affiliate.
Being 100% honest, I think Lactoid is probably one of my favorite people to actually interact with in these panels. Even if I'm yelling at him and disagreeing with him, I think he's better than 99% of the people in the panels to talk to. I don't know how he's not crazy popular already, but
Yeah.
that's the person to actually follow if you actually have a working brain, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you
Wow,
can
thank
spell
you.
it right. Yeah, absolutely. I actually agree. 100% agree. If you can spell his amazingly long channel name fucking right, oh my God. But if you can spell that right, then go follow him right now. Get him to 50. You're almost there. Get him to 50. Make it happen. All right. Let's go to our friend Jamali Senpai, who first time on the Reverie. I found out last week on like an embarrassing way that I never invited him here, even though I really like Jamali. But we did this week. We were trying to make up for that. So thank you for being here, buddy.
Thank you for having me, guys. My name is Jamali Senpai. I go by other things on other sites, but right now I'm really trying to push out my new YouTube channel that doesn't have any videos up yet, RYYZN Network. I just posted it in the self-promo for the Discord of the Worst Generation. And yeah, we're going to be doing some really cool things with that channel. I'll be uploading a landing page channel for that tomorrow, or actually the 1st of September. And then the second week, we have our interview with PrimeCayes, who I did a nice little interview with. That just needs to be edited down, and next week that'll be up. You'll have a premiere date for everything and everything. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. On Jamali's channel. So everyone, go check it out. Let's hit up our friend Fanatic. Fanatic, thank you for stopping by. Look, even on the pre-stream, when we're just shooting the shit, waiting for everyone to gather. Things escalate. I have a habit of escalating real fucking quick with us. But man, it's 100%. Nothing but love.
Listen, I'm a super passionate person, as everybody knows. That's why my show game is so ridiculous. So no matter what we're talking about, I'm probably going to be popping off. I cannot wait for topic number 2. Oh my gosh, this is going to be glorious. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I like the Reverie. I like popping off from folks. Obviously, it's never going to be as good as All Black to Everything, where we get to talk to other niggas, who have perfectly working brains as opposed to, the ones that are tainted by white supremacy. But either way, this will be a great conversation. I hope you guys are excited for it. I'm going to bring the smoke while I'm playing League of Legends because I'm that nigga.
Okay, all right. I feel like that was a personal attack at Lactoid. Lactoid, look, despite your obvious white supremacist tendencies, I love you any which way, all right? The fact you were tainted at birth with white supremacy, right? Everything that conservatives have been afraid that CRT has been saying, yes, you were absolutely right about it. So
I don't like the light being made of our melanin deficiency. Okay, it's very offensive.
All right. You know who's someone who's won a bus? Sproutacus. Sproutacus, thank you for being here. He's Canadian and he might as well be minority. He's minority adjacent, okay? All right? That's how well we think of you, Sproutacus. Thank you for stopping by as well, friend.
I appreciate it. I'm the Sproutacus. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter. Looking forward to the second topic as well. First topic is going to be interesting just to see what everyone's saying about it, because that really could go either way with a bunch of different people. But no, I'm excited to get into this conversation. Hopefully we learn a few things, but that's surely not going to happen. This is a Twitch panel. We're all going to yell at each other and then we're going to say goodnight. So again, I'm the Sproutacus. You can find me at Twitch and Twitter.
Shout out, buddy. Thank you so much. Al, thank you for stopping by. For you being here. Sorry, I do have like the hiccups, so like I'm burping and stuff, so I apologize for like the pauses. But yeah, Al, thank you for coming through. Much appreciated. And you're wearing headphones. Hooray, a present from me apparently. So how are you doing, Al?
Good. I'm wearing these rose-tinted glasses because I've been freaking out. Tomorrow I'm getting my first shot of the vaccine, and I'm a little bit hesitant. But, I'm going to do it because I need to get a job. And also, the reviews of Saints Row have come in. People are saying that it's a buggy mess and that it's super woke and really bad. But I don't care. When I get the money to pay for it, I'm going to play it and I'm going to have a good time. So, I'm just coping right now. But, I'm on the panel because I wanted to be on there.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to Corey Campbell. Corey, already helping me fight the good fight. All right, like against Fnatic. Corey's always in my corner, and I appreciate him. Right, so thank you for being here, buddy.
Yeah, super appreciate being invited, and also super grateful to be here on the panel with everyone else. Looking forward to getting into it. Both topics, as usual. Always have the best topics here. I'm Corey Campbell, PhD candidate in biochemistry. You can find me on Twitch. Twitch.tv, Corey Campbell 84, and on Twitter and Instagram, literally it's Corey Campbell. And also grateful to be here with my fellow resident Canadian, Blacktoe.
Thank you. Yeah, love your country, man. I love it. That's pretty cool. Let's go to our friend Doobie, who is all American. Doobie, hey, and apparently feeling love for himself. Look at him in that background. I think those heart bubbles are for us. I'm just gonna assume. Doobie, our Dark Lord and Savior, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And,
Hey, I saw
I'm
you
Doobie.
in the comment section. You were talking about Superman 2. You said Superman cloned himself. No, Lex Luthor cloned Superman. Remember that?
No, that's Superman 3. The Apollo. I think his name was Apollo.
Yeah,
where you have to like go to the moon and shit. Yeah, that's Superman 3. Superman 2. When at the end of the movie where Superman fights Zod and the two other like Kryptonians,
Okay.
he makes clones of himself, right? Not just like illusions. Like one of them like turns into a statue when the guy like crashes through it, and he throws his like Superman symbol at a dude and it's made out of plastic for some reason and it knocks him to the ground. There's all kinds of crazy ass powers.
I might not have seen.
And apparently
Superman
they have
2.
like finger lasers and like I'll send it to you. I'll send the scene to you. It's really fucking weird.
I remember Superman 3, and the dude had finger lasers there too. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Superman 3, he like rewinds time, I think.
It was
By
wild.
like
Yeah.
flying around the world and he rewinds time.
Oh my god.
I remember that.
Silver Age Superman is like unbelievable. Like unbelievable what they do with Superman. But okay. All right. That was great. Let's start the show finally. 50 minutes in. Topic.
You wanted a time killer.
I did, and I got it. Topic 1. Pakistan is facing devastating floods. The damage is estimated to be $10 billion. This is catastrophic with the nation that ranks 44th in GDP. It is speculated that these floods are being intensified by climate change. Also, by some estimates, Pakistan produces less than 1% of global carbon emissions. If those two statements are true, is Pakistan owed climate reparations from the heavy polluting nations? Does all the global South, who have negligible climate impact, are they owed reparations from the global North, or are they all on their own? All right, we'll get into that one. But yeah, Pakistan is suffering from devastating floods. Right, I think it's 33 million people displaced. It's absolutely huge, and tragic. But as you can imagine, Pakistan was mostly like a rural population, all that. They don't put a lot of emissions out, but they are suffering the consequences of climate change. So, should nations like the United States be paying these other ones so that they can, like for instance, if they're a country like prepared, like for the climate future, so they can take mitigating action, right? So yeah, climate reparations. We'll start with our friend Lactoid.
Yeah. So first of all, horrible tragedy. I agree. As any kind of natural disaster, I think you used the right word when you said it is speculated that these floods are being intensified by climate change. I mean, the Indus Valley and Pakistan particularly suffers from floods and has historically suffered from floods. I don't know what percent of the flood is due to climate change, but regardless, it is a absolute tragedy. Regardless, though, even if we could estimate that some percentage of the flooding is due to global carbon emissions, I'm opposed to the idea of giving them reparations. I know Scott's not here to channel my inner Scott a little bit. The money that would be sent to them would be acquired by theft, which is morally wrong. But regardless of that, Pakistan is not a responsible nation. And despite nominally being a U.S. ally, it has interests that are fundamentally opposed to U.S. interests, outlined by their support of the Taliban and the fact that they're an adversarial geopolitical power, given their support of China to combat the world's largest democracy, India. Giving these corrupt and often anti-U.S. nations our taxpayer dollars, stolen dollars from people who aren't necessarily responsible for that climate change, is both unfair to our own population and not practically intelligent, especially when the West is quickly developing the solutions that will help solve environmental concerns once and for all. Just look at the rates of renewable use and the development of electric cars and other forms of sustainable energy in the West. The West is going to be the power to solve this problem, and being declared morally responsible despite all of these contributions, I think, is counterproductive. And finally, given just the insane amount of foreign aid that the West provides the global South, I think demanding more at some point just gets rude.
Did you say rude?
Yeah, maybe a little bit greedy too.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that, Jamali.
We should help the Pakistani people with humanitarian aid. Claims for reparations for climate change can be on the table for discussion, but first we should probably make sure that proper precautions are being taken to combat these flood seasons. According to blog.worldbank.org, sewage networks need an urgent overhaul. Of the 12,000 tons of municipal solid waste generated each day in Karachi, 60% does not reach a dump site, and trash accumulates in drainage pipes. Since 2000, the World Bank has committed over $4.7 billion to more than 340 solid waste management programs, for instance, Indonesia and China. And I believe those have had some levels of success. Moving towards sponge city concepts to absorb rainwater, prioritizing green infrastructure and permeable surfaces. This would involve stopping encroachment into urban wetlands and increasing water infiltration through greening, which would reduce the need for costly stormwater drainage systems in the city. And challenging the status quo won't be easy for Karachi to move forward. Its citizens and civil society need to be empowered, and increased financial transparency to reform. And reform-minded officials will need to play a major role. I mean, their last prime minister was voted out with no confidence, so there does seem to be some level of governmental problems and how the leadership over there works. That being said, offering immediate aid is the best we can do as a global community right now.
Okay, let's go, Fanatic.
Yeah, I think the idea of using the word reparation here is absolutely repugnant to me. Again, it's crazy that we're just like speculating about something that might possibly be loosely related to something else, and we're saying let's talk about reparations. Yet, whenever you talk about reparations for Black Americans, for the obvious and continued oppression of Black people in this country, like all of a sudden, white folks don't really care about that. Yeah, but we can get bleeding hearts for climate change nonsense. Yeah, I'm all right. Do I think that we owe them anything? Absolutely not. Like, this is not something where we directly did something wrong to them. This would be just all of us living in a world where we didn't have the information and whatever. I think reparations here sounds absolutely nuts.
Well, let's go to Sproutacus. You muted, buddy.
Pro streamer. All right. I think we should help Pakistan. I think, but not in the guise of that we messed up the country. The entire world has continuously contributed to climate change. The entire world has continuously done this. Even though Pakistan might have contributed 1%. I do not think that it's on the rest of the world for basically creating vehicles and creating things that typically only first class people would be able to have and be able to enjoy. That they should then help third class from whatever damage that might do to the environment when it was the most of the entirety of the world, the first class. I think that we should treat them as any other country. And as a matter of fact, we do normally. We have a growing relationship with Pakistan. We've had it for a while, since 1947 when it became independent. So I say we keep to that relationship. We keep to that same relationship that we treat them as any other country, and we support them through the hardship they're going through right now, but not underneath the guise that we fuck them with climate change.
I'll.
I would just like to echo the words of Lactoid. I think it is greedy, entitled. I think it's weak of Pakistan to blame the world for its problems. You know, I think America, we had Industrial Revolution. We put lots of coal and pollutants into the air, and that was wrong because we didn't understand that we were actually supposed to be stewards of the earth. We didn't know that. But as we liberalized and we came into the modern times, we realized that we should take up that role, and so we've been trying to pick up that mantle along with other Western countries. However, it might be a little too late to stop some of the things that are going on. However, there's no 100% definitive proof that Pakistan's tragedy came off the backs of U.S. citizens, so I don't think that U.S. citizens should be on the hook for this thing that happened in Pakistan. I think that we should help Pakistan because just like any time or any country, United States is always the helping hand that wants to help the world, and we're world police. And so when the police come, you should always call the police for help. And so if Pakistan calls us for help and says, please, we have floods, there's riots in the streets because people are looting, we need order, we need law and order. Yeah, then you can call the police, which is us, the United States, and we can give them aid, we can give them funding, we can give them ground support if needed in the form of peacekeepers, but it's not our fault. And calling for reparations, that's crude, entitled, and bad. What I would suppose is that those third world should actually have their industrial revolution. They should rocket through with some factories, get some industry into their countries, boost up their GDPs, and then they can catch up with us. And then as a whole collective, we'll all be rich and able to solve this together because we'll all have nuclear reactors and factories that make good shit. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Al did a clever thing where he was relating the first topic to the second topic. I saw what you did there. All right, I saw that.
I know,
guys,
clever.
We're gonna have a big fight. We're gonna have a big fucking fight soon. Let's go to Corey. Let's see if Corey, right, continues his streak of being a genius and always being on my side. Go ahead, Corey. Say the right things.
Well, I'm gonna try, but there's a lot that I want to cover. I don't think I have the time right now currently to address all those points. What I will say is to maybe address Fanatic's point of like reparations and like, is Pakistan owed reparations? Like, sure, I can concede that they're not owed reparations, but that's just reframing. Do I think that they are owed aid in terms of like monetary compensation? Yes, I would absolutely say that 100%. And I would even include not just the US, but Canada as well, and largely pretty much every other developed nation. As in like, we in the developed world are pretty much on a per capita basis, like the main drivers of climate change, if not almost like the
China.
exclusive on a per capita. So, given that, and the fact that many of our lifestyle choices in the developed countries have driven climate change. Now we are seeing that the developing countries are paying the price for that, and they're paying the price for that like in an exceedingly large body count. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg, sort of alluding to our past panel. Where we were, we were debating, filling golf holes with concrete. Like, oh, this is like a crime against humanity. But like, how bad does it have to get before like the messaging gets across to people and governments that something drastic has to change? And like, you're going to see like the conservative talking points like come up, even though like Lactoid's not a conservative, and I'm pretty sure Fanatic's not a conservative. It's pretty much like, since we can't 100% conclusively prove this, even though like there's large scientific consensus and the evidence backs it up, like it's crystal clear. And I'll start providing links in the chat to prove that, as in like there are pretty much record numbering of extreme weather events occurring strongly associated with climate change. That is pretty much an undeniable fact. But can we link every single, extreme weather event to climate change? No. And this is where it's going to get contentious in terms of like, if you are looking for 100% like conclusive proof, like this event took place because of climate change, you will never reach that that pretty much threshold. And I'll end it there for now.
All right, thank you so much. All right, and please do the.
I think that a portion of me is tempted to just say that, hey, it's not really our problem. They're not Americans. Suck my dick. And that's a strong part of me, right? To be clear. But I think being more realistic, whether you want to call this reparations or not, I do think it's stupid to call it reparations. But the reality is that if we don't help these people, given how terrible it's been for them recently, and how terrible it seems to be, it's going to be in the future, eventually it will be our problem, right? Eventually they'll be in Europe at Europe stores again. They might be at the United States stores again. We'll have another refugee crisis, which is exactly what was predicted by experts with like climate change, right? You'd have like climate refugees, because large portions of the planet are going to be uninhabitable. So it seems like the responsible thing to do would be to attempt to deal with the problem there, right? To attempt to help them there so they don't need to come here, which I would prefer, actually. And beyond that, I think that Corey is right. I think that we do need to start taking this seriously, right? It's obviously a problem. There is consensus. It is going to get worse if we don't start doing something about it today. And I mean like extreme measures. I don't think it makes sense to say these people should go through the Industrial Revolution. There are like, what, 1 billion people in India or some shit like that, some crazy shit like that. If they go through an Industrial Revolution like the United States did, that's way more carbon in the fucking atmosphere, which is way worse for the planet, right? We need to help them, right? We
We're talking about
got to where we
Pakistan.
are. No, I'm talking about India and Pakistan and China, all these countries that are not fully developed yet, that are getting to the point where they're starting to be, where they're getting on the path toward like industrialization, right? They are starting to burn more fossil fuels, because just like us, they're industrializing and modernizing, and that takes a lot of energy. So I think that given that we are in a privileged position in the United States, I think it is our responsibility to the planet and to ourselves to help these people through this transition in a way that's responsible for them and for the planet. I think and even if that costs billions of dollars, that's totally fine. I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Can I ask two questions? So Fanatic, do you believe that Black people deserve reparations?
You're muted.
Listen, I will entertain this really, really bad line of reasoning, but I'm just gonna say from the very onset that like there's literally no way in hell you could compare black reparations
No,
to
no,
this
I'm
Pakistan
asking a simple
thing.
question.
But yes, I will answer
Okay.
your question. Yes, I believe black people need reparations.
I agree with you. Lactoid, do you believe black people deserve reparations?
No, absolutely not.
And so Fanatic, I'm going to lactoid you. Prove to me that scientifically that the socioeconomic status and all the hardships of black people today is pretty much rooted in the history of black people in the United States. I want scientific proof right now.
Sure. So it wouldn't, when you use the word scientific proof, we just refer to all of the largest economic studies that show that the vast majority of wealth in this country is real estate.
No,
White
that is
people.
rooted in
I'm
history.
sorry.
I'll
I'm
let you finish.
sorry. I'm sorry. It is a factual. It is fact that 70% of the wealth portfolios in the country of the United States are real estate. By every study that's known to man, this isn't debatable. So if we know that, and we can show that people living today had to endure both redlining and other forms of housing discrimination, which is part of the reason why we had the Million Men March. So if we can show that people living today have directly been impacted by laws that literally prohibited them from acquiring houses, then that would obviously create a system in which there would be racial disparities. Do you disagree with that fact?
I would disagree in that it's rooted in because I asked you the explicit question in terms of how that's rooted in the history of black people in the United States. You are pretty much just describing a descriptive reality, as in like to frame it in climate change terms, like, oh, these are just extreme weather events in the black community.
No.
Well,
What I did
who
was,
cares?
I'm sorry, I rooted it in history by pointing out, number one, what the wealth portfolios are, and then historically what happened regarding housing such that black people weren't able to get the same wealth as their white counterparts living in the same time period. So one,
Yeah.
that's the history. The redlining is not something that's live today, even though you do have reverse redlining. Redlining is not here today. So then clearly, historically, this is the history. Housing discrimination of the past, redlining of the past, reverse redlining of the past, which are still impacting people who are living today. So here I'm pointing out to you historicity and today, both of those things.
All you pointed out is
Fanatic.
associations. That's it. Those are not sort
That's
of direct
not-
one-to-one.
I don't think you understand what
this is
that
wrong.
means.
I think it's
I
a
don't-
wrong like point to get stuck on. Like whether we want to call it reparation, because Fanatic, to be fair to the other side of the argument, because I'd agree with you that calling it reparations is kind of stupid, right? Given the context of what's going on. But I think what some people would argue on the other end is that, hey, America first world nations knew about climate change in the 70s, right? And the research is buried and set aside and ignored. And they're like, oh, do another 10-year study, another 10-year study, because they wanted to keep exploiting these natural resources in these
can
other
claim
countries.
that.
Yeah,
No,
well,
they're still
that's like,
studying it.
yeah, well, that's the counter, right? That hey, it's reparations because there was we knew that we're fucking them up. We knew we were.
But I
fucking the
reject
planet
that
up, we didn't
argument
know.
because we didn't know. I'd say, well, number one, the vast majority of Americans living today didn't know at that time.
Yeah,
It
I'd
was
agree
like
with that.
still an incredibly hotly debated topic where the studies, some of the largest studies, were literally sealed away because they said that it needed to be privatized, but we needed to act anyway, which of course automatically creates a situation where people are going to say, wait, you want me to act with urgency about something that you're forbidding me from actually ascertaining and like the information for? Of course, then you're going to get people that are going to be dragging their feet. It's like, hurry up. There's something important for you to do. And it's like, what is it? I can't tell you, but you just need to move with haste. Yeah, that urgency is not going to be there.
I
Again,
agree with you.
this is incredibly different from obviously the direct relation of people living today, such as my mother, who literally had her inheritance affected because the house that my grandmother purchased 3 years ago, because the house that my grandmother purchased was literally purchased in an area where the maturation rate of that property was dramatically different than the people in the white neighborhoods. We can test all of these things. These things are quantifiable facts, observable facts that we can observe. Trying to compare that to something as indirect and loose as climate change impacting rains such that there are floods in a place that's already more privy to flooding, and trying to say that these things are the same is absolutely disgusting, and one of the reasons why I hate white people on this platform in this space.
No, I wouldn't agree with the last part, but I agree with the rest part. I think this is why climate
white
change
people.
is such a difficult topic, right? Because the effects aren't like right in front of you, right? You can't say, oh well, we pumped out this much oil, and now next year, there's this much damage being done. It's way more long term. It's way more difficult to track that.
So,
Which is something that like Corey kind of points to. So this is why, all that to say, I think that getting stuck on the reparations one is kind of pointless.
yeah, I would also agree with what Fennec said. I mean, other than the hating white people, I think white people are okay. But I mean, even though we disagree in reparations, the argument there at least exists that you can point to specific things. With when it comes to climate change, I mean, there was a whole the evidence wasn't solid for a while. I mean, it is now, but it wasn't solid for a while. And there was a time period in which the climate was cooling, and then and then it turns out that like if there wasn't global warming, there would have been some kind of mini ice age event, and then that was prevented. And then people were like, okay, well, it's actually warming up now. And there was a lot of conflicting science. Okay, and to expect, I think of first of all, Americans to know better when the scientists didn't know, and to not only know better, but that they should sufficiently know enough to be responsible for flooding in Pakistan. I mean, even in law, there's a concept of proximate cause, where we can't hold you responsible for something unless the cause is proximate to the effect. I mean, this is several orders removed and very speculative.
I would assume that's why you're against
Wait, really
reparations.
quickly.
I could be
Wait,
wrong.
just to clarify,
Yeah,
because you guys misquoted me, and I want to make sure that it's just crystal clear. I didn't say I hate white people. What I said was I hate white
On this
people
platform.
on
On
this
this platform.
platform, in this space. Because every time when we start having conversations, it seems like people are willing to just use slavery or redline or whatever black issues, or a lot of times trans issues, but I don't care when they do that to them, because that's not my struggle. It's not my fight. It's for the LGBTQIAN+2 to fight. But and PrimeCayes and friends. But my point being, whenever you guys will weaponize the struggles of black people, the history of black people. You'll use those things and appropriate them or misappropriate them for other things, like what's happening right now, where we're trying to refer to this Pakistan thing as reparations, but actually go into denial of those things. Because in order for you to go down that ridiculous and insane line of questioning, it implies that you don't recognize how absolutely apparent and direct and obvious and founded the claims to reparation by Black Americans in this country are, which is why I responded the way I do. Because you're not the only one. Destiny does the same thing. Vosh has done the same thing, and most white people in this platform in the debate sphere do the exact same thing, and it's absolutely repugnant to me. But again, I don't have a disdain for white people in general. Some of my best friends are white. Ralph happens to be a really, really good streamer. I think he's a great person on this platform. He's just not in this debate sphere saying dumb stuff. That's what I wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Wait, so separate from whether or not we knew that they were caused, I let your mic's like fuck that thing.
Yeah.
It's like lots of fuzzy shit.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Huh?
God damn you. Nothing. I love you. I was gonna say, so whether or not we knew, right, that this was happening, right, and whether or not it's reasonable to expect the American people to understand the damage that was being done by the consumption. It seems like we were the cause of the problem, right? And you could even say that, hey, well, shit, we needed to industrialize, we needed to modernize, and that's going to lead to us burning lots of fuel. So this was kind of going to happen either way, right? Whether it was us or the Chinese or the Indians or whoever the fuck, right? So, but at this point, given that it's a problem that exists, whoever's to blame, why wouldn't we devote resources to solving that problem, given that it's affecting everybody?
We already do. That's the thing. Going back to the foreign aid, America has given a lot of foreign aid to Pakistan, specifically for flooding. And you can say, well, we should increase the foreign aid because people dying from flooding is a bad thing. And that's a discussion. But the topic is phrased, we have some kind of responsibility, some kind of obligation, some kind of moral fault here. We are the ones that made them suffer, therefore we have to alleviate them. That's just not true.
Yeah, okay, but this feels like I feel like that makes sense if we're just being upset about people saying, hey, this is your fault. But if we were to look at this in reality, there is a problem, right? Whose ever fault it is, it exists. It's a thing that's happening. And yeah, we've given them money for flooding, but it seems like they need more.
A lot.
And it seems like they need more, right? And beyond that, they need help modernizing in a way that isn't going to further damage the planet and the atmosphere, right? So I think Io said, hey, they should industrialize. If they do that, fucking 3-4 times the population of the United States in some of these places, That's a bad fucking idea for the planet, right? If they were to go through the same path to industrialization that we did. Right, so we need to help them come up with a cleaner way to do that. That still allows them to get to a stable foothold, where they're not having to burn cow dung to feed their children.
What's your plan? Because despite the fact that we give a ton of aid to Pakistan, they are somewhat unreliable in that they divert a lot of that aid to like the Taliban or other forms of global terrorism.
Well, if it were my aid would come with hooks, right? Like strings
hooks?
attached.
What strings?
Where you'd have like Americans on the fucking ground there, making sure that the money goes where it's supposed to go, and they're building the things that they're supposed to build.
I don't think they're going to like that. I don't think they're going to accept that.
I don't think it matters.
Well, how are we going to force them to accept aid if they're not
then they don't get aid, and then honestly, I feel like China should be providing the bulk of the aid since just because of proximity, as well as humanitarian relief. But I mean, that's probably
where are those Pakistani refugees going to go? You think they're going to China when they're fucking what is it, like a third of the fucking country is underwater? They're going to go to China? No, they're going to go to Europe. They're going to try to come to the United States.
I wanted to make something clear because it seems like people were a little bit confused, and that's fine. Maybe because I worded it the way I did, but I wasn't talking about like some sort of one-to-one thing where this flood that like one of their Pakistani ministers said that it was going to cost $10 billion, right? I wasn't saying that for this disaster, right? The global north pays $10 billion rather than a whole fund for climate reparations. So in that case, just in general, these ongoing payments to help these individuals get their countries in order for the damage that the global north has done, but not like saying, well, this individual flood is climate change related, right? That's not how in terms of black reparations, compared to that, that's not how that was going to work, right? Not for each individual racist act, but the history of the damage
that is how reparations work. It is. It's directly tied to several acts. Like that's the way it's been broken down historically.
So I would ask you, how would you quantify that? Like, how would you give that a dollar value?
Oh, sure. So it's really, really simple. So what you do is you compare what the average wealth of the people who are able to use things like, the government-backed insured loans. Like you calculate that specific amount of wealth, like from their real estate, and then you compare that to their to the people who weren't able to do that, and then you can pay them a difference of that. Likewise, when it comes to like things like the GI Bill, you can literally look at the lives of the people who are able to use the GI Bill and get an education and who are able to earn wealth in that way, and you can find out like what the difference in wealth accumulation over the lifetime of those individuals, and you can calculate those things that way, and so that's how you can compare those impacts. Yeah, there's economists that actually study these things. Now, I'm not going to claim to be the economist that's doing it, right? But the fact of the matter is, it's not like these things are that impossible to quantify. We do these kinds of things all the time.
And there are also economists like quantifying the damage to both the developing and developed world as a result of the greenhouse gas emissions. And I would pose the question to Lactoid as to like, why are you against reparations? And I'm not saying that I would frame this as like the developed world giving money as reparations. Like I'm okay reframing it as just like aid and helping them.
People
but I'm curious, like,
whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't know why we're getting caught up in this term, right? Like,
let's just call it foreign aid. Let's just call it foreign aid. I think it's going to cut out a lot of the extra.
Yeah, let's do that. Foreign aid, so we don't sully. Yeah, let's do.
Climate.
The next topic, fanatic. I'm trying to keep it in this topic. Foreign aid is fine to keep it in this topic. I'm not trying to segregate these.
I was agreeing with you, Psycho. What's going on?
I thought you were being sarcastic. I'm sorry. I thought you were being sarcastic. I apologize. I thought you were being sarcastic. There you go. Foreign aid.
Okay.
Because
Prime.
reparations has a moral weight to it and a significant fault attached to it, and so I think the American people down and weighing them down with a moral weight for climate change is wrong if we can't prove that
I think there is a moral
climate
weight,
change caused those floods.
There is the moral weight to it.
But so whether is it so much weight that we should take that blame for Pakistan and say,
no, that's not what I mean.
We fucked you over.
It's not like a moral weight in terms. Well, for me anyway, I don't know the way the Prime means it. For me, it's not moral weight as in like, hey, it's our fault this happened, so we need to fix it. It's more like we have the ability to do something about this crisis, right? To take leadership, to have like American leadership on this issue that's going to affect us and everybody else on the fucking planet. So we do have a moral responsibility to do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think that's true.
Let's
What are we gonna do about it? Because they
Lactoid.
can't.
Hold on, Lactoid was talking, and people just talked over him.
It's okay.
Lactoid, please.
He's white, so
Yeah, it's fine. I'm sorry. This is reparations in real time right now. No, but it's not just a one-time thing that we're giving Pakistan aid for. Every single time they flood, they get a whole bunch of stuff from the U.S. They get a whole bunch of stuff from the world, and throw that on top of the regular, yearly aid that they get from both the UN and the U.S. directly, and the massive amounts of U.S. investment. I mean, there's a lot of money going in Pakistan, and one question. I obviously have to answer Corey's question first, but one
You don't
question
have to.
I would have is like, how much money do we really got to put forward until we've kind of hit what we should. And to Isle's point, I think it is important to distinguish between foreign aid and reparations, because reparations does have a moral weight to it. In the way, like, for example, like welfare is different than reparations. Even if welfare like disproportionately helps one racial group, if the intention there is simply to alleviate, economic struggle and to bring every American up to some sort of base level of status, the motivations of reparations are very different, right? The motivations of reparations aren't, bring every poor American up to a particular status. It's a wrong occurred, and we have to fix that wrong by going back and doing what we can to restitute that wrong. It kind of similar to in a civil suit, right? That's what I do, right? Civil suits. My whole job is coming up with, kind of somewhat arbitrary numbers. We kind of decide this person's been hurt. How much have they been hurt? How much money are they owed? So they're like kind of back to where they were. The legal system does this all the time. I don't think that, an issue with coming up with an exact dollar amount is really the issue to be focused on. And it's not my issue with reparations. I have a couple of philosophical issues with reparations. Historical issues with reparations, but it doesn't have to do with like calculating damages or even necessarily proximate cause.
So Lactoid, to kind of push back on what you were saying about Pakistan getting money from the U.S. and the United Nations, I would ask you, why do you think the U.S. helped Japan during natural disasters? Why do you think the U.S. helped Haiti during natural disasters? Why do you think the U.S. has helped any of these countries during national disasters that we shouldn't offer, that brings like the solution that you're bringing, that we shouldn't offer Pakistan any additional foreign aid to try to help them, try to assist them while they're experiencing natural disasters?
We've already done that, and we continue to do it. The reason why we're helping these countries is because, there is sort of this expectation that as a foremost leader.
So you're saying Haiti didn't get more money when they had the earthquakes?
No, they did, but Pakistan, with the floods now, are getting a lot more money from America. Like, it's happening right now. Like, we're sending them money because of this flood, in addition to all the money we're sending before. Same with Haiti, right? Haiti got aid, and when the earthquake happened, they got a whole lot more aid.
Well, I mean, we owe Haiti aid because of all of the nonsense that the United States did. We did occupy that country for like, I want to say close to like 15 years or something like that, with military, and like literally subjected them to slavery from the United States. So, I mean, like just given all the sanctions and everything that we've done to harm that country, it makes sense why we would give them any aid for anything, right?
It's not just Haiti. There's a bunch of other countries. Haiti and Japan were just the two to cross my mind. So I apologize if that's how it came out. But Haiti,
no. But and Japan, that would also apply. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think those are also very, very clear reasons. I mean, hell, it was immediately following that where we have since had a military in there where we've been occupying that country. They're not really allowed to have the same kind of military of their own, or at least they haven't been able to. While the United States has been occupying it, they do now. Obviously, they're allies. But there was a point in time where they weren't. And so, like, yeah, we've done so much harmful stuff to them. So then the idea that we would give them aid makes all the sense. But it's, again, very direct harm, not some, like, ethereal, like, abstract, indirect, something like that.
So what you're telling me is the British should be the one paying for Pakistan, as they were the one that had it colonized?
Sure.
That sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. And I also don't agree with the idea that America owes Japan for acts of war when we were attacked, and we had to stop them from committing a genocide in China. I don't know. I think that's rational.
So guys, I gotta look into this because I want to use an example of Haiti, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think the bomb's
because
justified as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of Haiti, like the U.S., like there was not just the U.S., but a lot of countries like made big promises to Haiti, but then actually didn't follow through. It's been a long time since I looked at this
Thank you for
story,
that,
so
Prime.
yeah.
You're right.
It's been a long time since I looked at that story, and I'm like literally looking it up right now again. So I don't want to make any definitive statements, but my understanding is that a lot of those promises didn't actually come through any which way. A lot of broken promises. As soon as like the cameras and like the really well intentioned like like citizen fundraisers like stop happening, right? When the world's attention turned away, that they just like fuck it, like we're not going to actually do
You mean
this.
like after Hillary Clinton stole those kids, basically?
Now I could
Yeah.
be wrong. I could be
But I gotta
very
look
wrong.
into
But
it.
didn't the United States military go to Haiti as a humanitarian force?
Yeah, we
well,
dumped a lot of money into Haiti. You can look it up.
It was like 13 billion, I think. But I'm not sure if all of that arrived. I gotta look up that story, but I don't think that's as a slam dunk as people seem to think it is. But
We also did the same thing with it's a Central American country. It starts with a B. I think it's Bulgaria.
Bolivia?
No, Bolivia. Sorry. So Bolivia, we did the same thing a couple years back with Bolivia. To where we sent the United States military as a humanitarian force to help Bolivia with what they were dealing with.
so anyway, it's just a bit of distraction. So focusing in on this, right? Like circling back. I think that, first of all, we do have a moral responsibility. I think it's weird that people are making this argument like, oh, well, you can't draw a direct connection, and since you can't draw a direct connection, obviously, it ends up us having no responsibility. That's not how it works in anything else, right? Like, we can understand polluters. Like, you can understand that, like, within an area, if like, the cancer rates rise in one area and you have polluters all around, pumping chemicals into the environment, that probably it was them. Now, could some of those people have gotten cancer just by themselves? Sure, right? But that's why you do this comparison. And you see this is the damage that was done, right? Like we can make smart inferences and understand that some people are responsible for things, even though you can't directly say, well, these chemicals went into this person's body and then started these cancer cells. Like that happens all the time, and we do that all the time in law. Correct, Lactoid?
If you not if you don't know that the pollution is like harmful, right? There's a reason these
That's my point.
There's a reason why these are dictated by statute. Like before we knew that like coal dust caused issues, like we're not going to retroactively go after like the coal companies for doing this. The reason why we went after the tobacco companies is because they did know and they were lying. If they had no idea.
And then in order to make this a sound argument, you would have to again prove that because to my knowledge, it seems like this area was already really prone to flooding. So it seems like an area that was really prone to flooding over centuries, by the way, right? Like if that's happening now, to be able to try to correlate it towards climate change seems a little bit spurious to me. So then the question becomes, can you find anything to show that these floods are significantly worse than the floods in the past and so on and so forth?
Actually,
can you?
That's the thing.
Yes, like that. The science is clear on that. Like,
but no. Hey, Corey, what you've been doing this entire time is you keep saying the science is clear that there will be floods, that there will be these things that will eventually happen. And what I'm saying is this place has already been flooded. So then can you prove to me that these floods are somehow different or distinct due to climate change?
Well, that's the whole point. Is like you are imposing an impossible threshold that science will never clear, in terms of like, just as science will never clear that your individual like family member, their current status is tied to all of the historical like events that occurred before. Like I'm reasonably sure that's sort of like the type of, I could be wrong, and I'll let them sort of defend themselves, but I think even Lacto would probably say like, I can't pin down this individual person's current circumstances and make a strong
No, not
direct
all of
correlation
their
to the
current. No. See, that's wrong. Again, what you might not be able to prove all of their individual life circumstances because their life is going to be way more complicated than that. But can you show that there was a direct harm that was caused by the specific legislation? Yes, you can tell that by saying, where was your house legally allowed to be purchased at the time that you purchased it? And you can say, with people living today, for example, my grandmother was literally only allowed to buy the house in the black neighborhoods because the Fair Housing Act wasn't until 1968. That house was purchased long before then. So then you can say this house was only able to be purchased in this specific location only because of the fact that you guys had legislation that only allowed her to do so. So then you can say, well, then that means that then we can look at the maturation rate and see that your house didn't mature at the same rate. That's something that is still very, very direct, very easily calculable, very quantifiable, that this is not abstract. Again, when you start saying, hey, and then you can look at it and say, well, look, I'm going to try to make an analogy here. You can say, well, what is the average rate of maturation of homes, and what was the average rate of maturation of homes that were in the black neighborhood? And that's what you can do the comparisons of. So, but except
we.
But and to draw the analogy home, because I know you guys will miss it because you're not that bright. If you want to compare it to something like where you're going to talk about this Pakistan situation, you would also have to be able to say, well, what were the floods like in this place before? How frequently were they? How severe were they? And what's the difference from that today?
Sure, we can
and
do
if
that.
You can show
we
some
can
sort
do
of
that.
contrast.
Sure.
Then we would be able to have an argument.
We have from the Pakistani government that these floods are the worst in the decade. They're saying that these floods.
Decade.
Excuse me. Shut up. Fuck. I'm still talking, right? Thank you. Because in the decade ago they had another massive flood, but it was worse than that flood a decade ago. And they're saying like the damage done here is unprecedented. They're saying that yes, it's true. These places have monsoon season, so floods do happen here. However, right, the monsoon floods start in July. This year, it started in June. We can see that with climate change, and this is the part that you're missing, right, Fanatic, is that and climate change, it's not that it will necessarily create weather patterns that weren't there before. It worsens weather patterns. It exacerbates these issues. So we can see over time that places, wildfires are being, we're having more wildfires in certain areas, right? Because it's getting drier in certain places. We can see the floods. We can see more intense storms. All these like random things, right? More snowfall in some areas or less snowfalls in other areas, right? We can see that in California, where they're having a massive drought. Not even just California, fucking China. You can see. Like,
I got you. Can you show me any of this?
And China, you can literally see the riverbed. The river is dry, right? And that's not just in that area, and many other places that's happening. Here in the States, that's happened for this, was it Lake Mead or something? I forget what it is.
Yeah, and you can, but you can also see some of that water deviated by like other things, like where we're now taking the water and doing other things with it. That's number one. Number two, again, if you can say that, hey, this is the worst thing in a decade, but then if I can show you that there was something that was even significantly 3 times as bad from this a century ago, then yes, just pointing out to the last decade doesn't really tell the climate change story that you're trying to.
That wasn't you missed what I said. I'll say it again, right? They simply were comparing it to a flood a decade ago because that one was like another one that was so bad. They were saying it's worse than what happened a decade ago. They're not saying that only.
You're not adding a clarification. I heard you. What I was challenging was, again, understanding what you said and responding as I just did. Simply pointing out to something that was worse a decade ago doesn't tell the climate change story that you're trying to. Because again, if I can show you a century ago a situation that was significantly worse, then that means that the climate change isn't the culprit here, right?
First of all, you never looked into climate change. You said you never looked into climate change, right?
Wait. I don't have to for this argument because what I just said was if you can show me something a century ago, then it doesn't matter.
More storms, right? So if the a weather pattern is happening more often, then that's also the sign of worsening.
Do you got evidence for that?
Yeah,
But
we can
here's
do,
the
we can
thing,
look for that
here's-
as well.
here-
Sure.
Then find
the
me
thing.
any of that.
Absolutely.
There's also other causes we can talk about.
The Earth consistently goes through cycles. The question of climate change is if humankind is accelerating these cycles, which I believe humankind is accelerating these cycles. But the Earth naturally goes through cycles. So not only do you have to prove that it was worse than a decade ago, you would have to prove that humans' actions were the direct cause of the aggregation of climate, and not necessarily just the cycle of the Earth.
Also, as I'm doing research here, this is a new, obviously with this particular flood, I don't know, it's happening right now, so there's not a lot of evidence on it. There was investigations of the 2010 flood. A lot of people are, at least a lot of the sites I've been reading about, are saying that some major contributors are deforestation upstream, which removes a lot of, or causes reduced infiltration and increases surface runoff. There's a lot of corruption in Pakistan, so a lot of the money that's sent to help with the flooding doesn't actually get to help with the flooding. There's a lot of people who are moving closer into the floodplains. The Indus Valley is a natural floodplain. It does flood every monsoon season. And then finally, because it floods every monsoon season, there's like a system of dams and levees that are up further upstream. And some of those are very poorly placed and poorly mismanaged, which can, again, kind of accentuate this problem. I don't know. I mean, these are all things that are speculated, I guess, to contributing to this issue. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I understand the intuition here. I'm just like let's say
it can't be proven. That's what you're saying.
Well, I'm not only am I saying it can't be proven, but I'm saying like even thinking about it intuitively, we have a system that floods constantly. Couldn't it just like, if we're 1%, like let's say without the actions of the West, like the flood would be 1% worse. Heck, how much moral culpability do we really have? Do we get to pay them for just 1%? Do we have to pay them for 2%? I mean, I don't know.
And then again, because I think like you can compare it to something like, for example, we look at like the area that I grew up in when I was quite younger, San Fernando, right? Growing up in that area, there's dams everywhere, right? I grew up at a place near a place called Hansen Dam, and all of those dams are pretty dry and never made any sense to me. There's dams all over that entire valley, and I never understood that until just recently. I mean, literally less than a year ago, my cousin told me about the great flood of 1930, where there was it was a complete catastrophe, and a gang of folks died. And so when he told me about this, he's like, "Yeah, that's why all those dams are there." Now we don't know that, right? Like I wouldn't know that because those things were all before my lifetime. But that's what those things were there for. And so then, if we were to just sit here and compare some crazy flood that happened, right, if we were to compare the rainfall that happens now to like maybe the rainfall that happened a decade ago, maybe it won't tell the whole story. Because if we were to compare what happened, the rainfall that was in the 30s, then maybe that was significantly higher, right? Before like the climate change had gotten as bad, right? Or before climate change had taken effect such that it would cause these changes. So again, the onus is on the people to be able to prove like that these things are actually happening. You can say, hey, it's kind of surmised that these things might happen based on the idea like of some concept that we have. But when you start talking about reparation, then reparation needs to be something that you can say is really fixed and finite and understood.
Sure.
With like
so
the
do you
historic
think that
systemic
the
oppression in
seas
this
are
country.
rising? Do you think the seas are rising?
I mean,
Global sea levels
I
are
would need to
rising.
find some data on that, but I do know that I'm not sure about that, but I do know that the land is sinking in that area, or at least that's what I'm.
No. I'm
someone
not talking about
someone is
Pakistan.
showing me.
Um,
Oh,
rising global ocean levels. Okay. Or sea levels or when.
Also,
we can-
Fnatic, I would go ahead, Prime.
I'll circle back this. You go first.
Okay. I'm just gonna say, Fnatic, the argument that you are making, like probably some point down the line, is going to be made to marginalized communities in the United States, like who are disproportionately affected by climate change. As in, you are probably going to see, or rather, it's happening, that marginalized communities in the United States are also paying the price for climate change and the extreme weather events that are also occurring in the United States. And you are like, people are pretty much, or insurance companies will be making that argument of like, well, since we can't conclusively prove that this event that occurred is due to climate change, well, then you are not going to get any sort of financial compensation or monetary compensation for that. And you are presumably like okay with that?
Yeah, listen, I'm sorry. Telling me that, hey, someone's going to make this argument, telling me that my argument will be misused or misappropriated by other people doesn't matter to me. And again, if in the situation in the future we're at a place where we cannot prove that there's any like of these harms directly related to climate change that are causing these changes and things like that, then yeah, I'm perfectly fine with people making the argument you have no evidence or proof to make the claim that you're making, because I'm always going to be evidence and fact based. And until yeah, so the fact that like there's no evidence to support what you're talking about, if that's then that's totally fine with me if people aren't given compensation for things that we can't prove. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
okay, all right.
No,
So,
just the threshold of proof that you require, as in
I
like
have a question.
the proof is there in
I have a
terms
question.
of the science. It's just
So-
not meeting your particular threshold.
Oh no. Good. Show me that proof. Show me that proof that show me the proof that shows that this area didn't flood this severely before the climate change effects were in effect. Show me that.
Yeah,
Can
that-
you?
That's your threshold.
So
I know
I-
that
I
because
want-
you're putting that arbitrary threshold. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah.
question.
So
No question.
okay. So NASA, I have an article right here from NASA talking about the rising sea levels and how they measure it. Right, it's got a whole article about how they measure, and I can put this in the group chat. And it's rising due to climate change, due to the melting ice caps, right, and other water sources melting. Do you generally agree with this statement? I know you haven't looked into it, but do you?
I haven't
generally-
researched it. I can't tell you.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
if I agree or
NASA
disagree.
says
I would
so.
need to
Okay.
research that.
So NASA says
Sure. So I would probably take it at
Sure.
face value that yeah,
Okay.
it probably is happening or something. Sure.
Okay, great.
But I don't have any
Um,
evidence for it. I don't know that, so I'm not going to argue with that.
We have countries like the Maldives that are disappearing. Literally, the seas keep rising and washing it, and it's like estimated that their country is going to be gone, in like a few decades. The country's just
Wait,
not
are the
gonna-
sea levels rising in the Maldives, or is it that they're sinking? Something similar to like what's happening in New Orleans.
I mean, you're comparing New Orleans and their topography.
I'm asking a
to
question.
Maldives?
So yes, I'm asking a question. Can you answer that? Do you know?
I don't believe. I know. It's because the sea levels are rising. But I've never looked into. Hey, are they sinking? All right, I can look at that. Sure. But assuming that I'm right, and I'm right. And here's like another website. Hey, sea levels are rising. Maldives are disappearing. From the Union of Concerned Scientists. But I gotta actually read this fucking thing. But sure, I can look for it, see if it's falling, whatever. But assuming that I'm right, and I'm right. Like, would we have a responsibility to the Maldives, who have no climate footprint?
Okay, if you are right that there is direct harm to the Maldives that we don't have any evidence to support, or at least you're not willing to provide me with any.
Hold on,
And
I'm
if
looking
you're-
at
if
it right
you're-
the fuck now. All right,
I
go
got you.
ahead.
I know that you are, and then look it up. And then when you do, then maybe we'll be able to have that. But until
Okay.
you do, I don't know how to engage with. I'm sorry. So just assuming that you're 100% right, the Maldives are not sinking. It has nothing to do with like the area where that place was created, similar to like New Orleans or something. Like if that's the case, and we can say without a doubt it's only happening because of rising sea levels. Then, of course, and we can also prove that the rising sea levels are directly related towards climate change, which is like 100, and the climate change is directly related towards to being man-made, right? And if you can prove, and the man-made climate change problems are not just directly related to population size, but to maybe like fossil fuels or just whatever the freak, right? So if we can do all of those things, then yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, I guess we probably would, yeah. But even then, I guess it'd be hard for me to say that we directly owe to the Maldives themselves, because it wasn't like a personal intended injury against them. In the same sense that like in an accident, I wouldn't be required to pay restitution to a family. Like I'll paint a scenario to you. I'm driving my car responsibly. Some person jumps in front of my car, and I'm about to hit them and kill them. I swerve my car to avoid them. I'm not doing anything irresponsible. I'm driving the speed limit. I'm not drinking. I don't even have the radio on. I'm paying attention. I'm doing everything on the up and up, and I swerve to avoid them, and I accidentally hit another person. I don't owe that person any restitution because it was purely accidental, right? And so in the same sense, unless I'm doing something intentionally injurious or at least negligently injurious, then I don't owe any restitution. And in the same sense, unless we're doing something intentionally injurious or negligently injurious, I don't see that we would owe them that.
Your example is irrelevant because that's an individual person between whatever you and someone else.
I'm sorry, apply the example, the principle. I'm sorry. Yes, the example you can say is irrelevant if you're really struggling to struggle analogies, as you people on Twitch typically do, but I'll just make sure that it's crystal clear here. The example was to provide an analogy to give you a principle. And the principle is, unless something is intentional or negligent, right? Or knowingly negligent, intentionally injurious or knowingly negligent, then a restitution is not owed. This can apply towards an individual. It can even apply towards a country, right? It can apply towards a system, right? These are the values. I say there is no moral obligation unless there is negligence. Again, knowing intentional injury or knowing negligence. Those are the only two.
Legally speaking, you're just legally speaking, that's just wrong. So using your own example, if someone stepped out in front of your car and you swerved off the road and hit another pedestrian, it would be on you and your insurance to make that pedestrian whole. It would be on you and your insurance to pay for that person's hospital bills, since you are the one that hit that person with your vehicle. It would legally be on you.
It would be on the person who caused me to swerve. Yes, it would.
I'm not an expert in how those legal.
That's not true.
Can someone who went to law school actually confirm that? Because that would make the most sense to me.
Unless I do the things,
talk, I guess.
Unless I do something like, for example, like when you're rear-ended by a car, if you for some reason like rear-end the car in front of you, the reason why they hold you liable is because they say you should be at a safe distance enough such that if that occurs, that you wouldn't run into the car in front of you. That's why you have
we have a lawyer and we have an insurance expert here, so we can talk to both of them. All right, so you can answer this question. Lactoid, you are an American lawyer, Canadian posing as an American lawyer. So please go ahead, and then Doobie, you can also answer this question as well.
Yeah. So I mean, this is car accidents. Like, this is what I do. Just because
car accidents happen.
Well, no. Okay.
Oh, go ahead,
I'm not Canadian anymore.
No. So just because you were in the car that had the impact or ran into something doesn't necessarily mean that you're responsible. You do have to show some kind of negligence. So like, for example, if you're driving a car and you pass out due to like some kind of medical event and then you run into somebody and kill them, if you can show like, yeah, I passed out, I didn't just run over them like intentionally or I didn't like negligently, like I wasn't like doing my hair or looking at my phone or something, you're not responsible. You don't have to pay damages. I've won a case like that, right? So you do have to show that the person who caused the accident did so negligently, that they had a duty and that they violated that duty.
Lactoid, in this example, the person that stepped out in front of the vehicle and you swerved off the road and hit another pedestrian. In this exact example that was given, the exact example that I used to then move forward with what I said, would the person that swerved off the road and hit another pedestrian, would they be held liable to make the pedestrian whole?
Assuming that, no, not necessarily. Assuming that they weren't speeding, assuming that they were watching the road and that they were driving carefully. If like suddenly like a guy jumps out from behind a parked car and they really had no reaction time and they just swerved, and like then they didn't see the person on the sidewalk and then it was too late to stop and they hit the person on the sidewalk, the driver's not responsible for that action because he didn't act negligently, and no jury is going to actually think that he acted negligently.
100% Lactoid. And to your point though, if the driver, my brother introduced this concept, if the driver had a condition where they were prone to pass out occasionally and they knew this and then they chose to operate that vehicle, then at that point they would be held liable.
Correct.
Right? Because at that point they had an obligation not to operate a car knowing that this could have been a thing. That's why I said knowingly knowingly negligent. I made sure I explained it very properly. So now that this lawyer has explained that I was 100% right, that in order to be held liable, such that you would need to be responsible for something, you would have to be intentionally injurious or knowingly negligent. That means there's going to be the onus that you were acting irresponsibly in order to cause this harm. If you were not acting irresponsible, and irresponsible can be two ways: one, intentionally injurious, or knowingly negligent. If that's not happening, restitution is not owed. And that would apply not just to individuals, that would also apply to corporations. It would also apply towards a police officer. It would also apply towards a freaking country. It would apply towards any sort of moral obligation for restitution.
You could potentially make the argument that the developed world has been negligent on climate change action.
Knowingly negligent would be the problem here.
Well, since they've been holding climate summits for at
Yeah.
least a couple of decades,
Negligent.
I think
Yeah.
they have knowingly
Climate summits about hotly debated topics that haven't been confirmed does not meet the claim of knowingly negligent. Now you can say speculatively negligent, because from these things we've been able to speculate that there is these possible outcomes, right? And there's studies and it's ongoing, and these are still debated topics. But again, to get to the point of knowingly negligent, it has to be reasonable that you can say that this would have been a thing.
In the 80s, Exxon, and pulling it back from countries, Exxon in the 80s, 1980s, had research saying that, oh yeah, there's a thing called global warming. That shit's real. We're a part of that. Exxon had that information. Then Exxon goes on this PR campaign, right, and makes it a hotly debated issue, right, where they roll out their quote unquote experts on cable news, on bullshit cable news, that puts them up against a climate scientist and say, oh yeah, I don't know, these things sound about equal. It must be a hotly debated thing. When 90% of the world's climate scientists, say that this is the thing, this is real, this is happening, right? But it's a hotly debated topic. No, it's not. It's not actually hotly debated, right? That only exists in the U.S. Like in other countries, it's not hotly debated. They understand this is a real thing.
Wait, but
I guess some of many African countries where they wouldn't say that. But so you're saying the reason why it's a hotly debated topic was because ExxonMobil manipulated everyone, and I will give you that. ExxonMobil is an evil company that manipulated everybody into like doubting something that was 100% factually accurate, and therefore created a hotly debated topic that should not have been. I will give you that.
You are
no problem.
Engaging.
But if that's the case, though, then at the very most, Prime, you should be in favor of ExxonMobil.
Absolutely.
But not like the American taxpayer that had nothing to do with it, right?
No. We have something to do with it. No, we absolutely do. We have a democracy.
Did we have access?
On the board of Exxon in the 80s?
We did. Hold on, we had.
Hold on. So we had
in the 80s.
We had access to like the information that ExxonMobil was hiding from us.
Yeah, we had climate. And I believe this was the 80s. Maybe it was like the early 90s.
You're talking about when Ross Perot was running, and then he had a big old study. But Ross Perot literally urged them. I'm pretty sure Ross, or if it wasn't Ross Perot, who was the other guy then?
I don't know who you were talking about, but that's not.
It was Al Gore.
Al Gore. There we go. I'm sorry. I'm such an idiot. It was just the same election. That dude literally got them to make the things that his studies were based on obscure and what's the word? Not privatized, classified, such that no one else was able to analyze those studies. So we didn't have the information. We just had him. We only had his word to go off of, which caused plenty of people to be doubtful, obviously. And so then, that makes
Al Gore did not start the discussion on climate change.
He didn't have to start, but yes, he did. He very much popularized it.
Mainstream, yeah.
He absolutely did.
I agree. He popularized.
Okay, and he also had the information classified. He also funded some of those studies, and then those studies he had classified, so no one else was able to view those things.
No, this research goes back. Like, you aren't engaging in like a right wing or conservative talking point. Like, I've linked it in the chat.
I don't care about your labels or associations. Just argue with the things that I'm saying, please.
No, I can't, because like the cognitive walls.
Okay, if you can't, then that's fine. We can just go ahead and end it there. You don't know how to engage.
Cognitively inflexible. I would agree with that.
Sure. Okay, but you haven't even attempted, so everyone else can see that.
If we want to talk about what we go ahead. What was your question?
Global
warming.
Yeah, so were
Yes.
you going?
Here's why I was okay. Sorry, I need to address this because this is the thing that I was talking about. I wasn't talking about Al Gore, right? So global warming became the most popular term after NASA climate scientist James Hansen used it in his 1988 testimony in the U.S. Senate. That's the moment where the U.S. Like without a doubt became aware. We had a discussion on this, and we started popularizing the term in the 80s. That's where we started with global warming. And from there,
It was still debated though. It wasn't confirmed, right?
It wasn't even confirmed.
And the effects were hotly debated because you can say that climate change is happening, but at 1988 you're not going to know what effects it's going to have, and you especially don't know that sometime down the road this might cause a flood to get worse in Pakistan.
No, hold on. Oh my God, that's you can stop trying to make that the like the basis of this conversation, right? Well, you can't draw it directly to this flood. No one is doing that. That's just you. So no one is arguing on those grounds. No one. Not a single fucking person.
Then I'm totally sorry, Prime. That's my fault then.
Right? Because that's not how it works. If you go to websites and activists who are talking about climate change, they always say, hey, yeah, we can't actually draw a line directly from this factory in this country putting out emitting carbon to this flood that's happening. We can't do that, right? But we are looking at global weather patterns as a whole and seeing them worsen very specifically in certain areas, right? Because the global south tends to be more affected by this because of their topography than the global north. Just how that worked out. That's
Prime. That's 100% my fault. I'm sorry. I thought you were relating these two things together, but if you are saying that, yeah, these things are completely unrelated, then maybe then maybe again I misunderstood. But also, it seems like now I don't understand how you get to the point where you want to argue that we should be paying some sort of restitution for something that you're saying that there is no relation to.
I didn't say there was no relation. Oh my God.
No, so there is a relation. But nigga, what's going on?
I didn't say direct relation. Direct.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were just using the word direct.
Direct line.
He didn't say direct. I'm sorry. Lactoid never was talking about direct either. He was talking about indirect. I'm sorry. Did you misunderstand him?
No,
he said we couldn't say down the line, long term down the line back in the 80s that it's somehow going to lead to. That would be an indirect thing, bro. Of course, it's not direct. Are you insane?
This is so dumb.
I know it is incredibly dumb, and don't upload this when you're embarrassing yourself. I'm sorry.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Thanks. Go ahead. We haven't let him in. Isle. You've been trying to jump in.
I think you're muted, or I'm not sure.
Isle isn't even in the Discord channel anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I'll pull him on 1 second.
Yeah, thank you.
Isle?
Hello? They're still muted?
Isle?
You're Jamali. I was talking to Isle.
You're Jamali.
There he is.
I'm sorry.
Al?
Okay, so I was gonna ask a question. Hear me?
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little, I think.
Not for me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So, if you can hear me, I was gonna ask Doobie, if.
Yeah, now. Yeah, definitely now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask Doobie if he doesn't agree with starting them on an industrial revolution. How are the third world people gonna catch up to the second world and the first world people, or should they just stay grasping at the largesse of the first world people, where they feel generous enough to give them aid?
Pollute to catch up. Okay.
I think so first, if I want to commend you for using the word largesse, I haven't heard that word in a long time. So thank you for that.
I hear it all the time when they're talking about me.
Okay. You're perpetuating the black stereotype again. Okay, that's bad. Okay. So I think that I do want them to modernize. Obviously, I think it'd be good for them to do that, right? And I do want them to industrialize, but I think they need to do it responsibly. But unfortunately, they don't really have the resources to do it responsibly on their own. Right. So I think that this is one of the times in world history where the Americans, again, need to take a leadership role as the world's daddy and come and say, hey, we want to help you industrialize, we want to help you modernize, but we don't want you burning coal. So here's the resources, here's the engineers. We're going to build up the shit for you. We're going to teach you how to do it, and we're going to put in the infrastructure so you can modernize in a way that isn't destroying the planet. I think that's totally reasonable.
Is it possible to like do all this
Yeah, I think so.
engineering and like state building without like lots of energy that will affect the climate?
Of course, they're going to be putting out energy like that. That's just. I mean, while this is happening, right? I think the goal would be
Clean
to
energy that won't cause global warming.
Oh, I think the goal would be to get them to avoid our bad habits, right? All the things that we did along the way, and all the things
they
that
could
we're
learn from
currently
us.
doing that are hurting the planet, right? And while doing that, we also need to pull back a lot and move toward more renewable energy.
There's no such thing as absolutely clean energy, though. There's no such thing as like absolutely
Nobody's looking for perfection, right? We're looking for a lessening of the impact.
Well, are we looking for a band-aid, or are we looking for like an actual solution to?
I mean, I guess we could just go back to monkey and go like be primitivist, right? But I don't know if a lot of people want to do.
Yeah, I'm good.
That's a non-starter, Doobie. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
But the best thing is to find out ways in which we can do everything that we love to do and that we need to do and that we should be, have the expectation of being able to do, but do it in a clean manner. And I think Elon Musk is on the forefront of this effort.
Oh boy.
So let's all, we can thank him.
I was
He's
waiting
leaving the
for it.
planet.
Gigafactories all over fucking Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Elon Musk is better than
still
NASA,
better.
right, Prime? Elon Musk is better than NASA, right, Prime?
True.
Why would Elon? No. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Like, thank you for
Elon Musk is making
for
rockets.
triggering
Hey,
me
NASA
one
had to
last-
cancel their launch.
Thank you for triggering me for weather reasons. Anyway, thank you for
for rocket reasons.
Oh no, you're right. Actually, it was for rocket reasons. I think it was. Yeah. But
Yeah, so maybe the thing is we're like subsidizing SpaceX and Elon Musk so much. We should just nationalize the thing, take it over, and make it a country's like a national project.
You mean just create NASA again?
Yeah, just
NASA
fold it into
2.0?
NASA. Fold it into
Yeah.
NASA. Take their engineering.
Yeah,
send
all
it to
for it.
technology.
You'd be
Nationalizing
causing
all that
the same problem that led to NASA being inefficient compared to SpaceX.
no, it wasn't an official. Okay. Oh, all right. Well, that's another conversation. That's
Yes.
another conversation.
As much as I would want to get into it.
So that's
Efficient.
been,
Thank you.
like,
Inefficient.
very less ambitious. That's been very ambitious.
Lactoid, thank you for triggering me just before the end of the topic. I just really appreciate that.
No problem.